You are going to make a beautiful Christmas stocking. You know, whether you've been good or bad this year, everybody gets a stocking. So first things first, we got to show you how to draw the pattern. Making the pattern just requires 3 sheets of copy paper that are 8.5 by 11 each. It also needs a cutting mat. That's very helpful. If you have a 45-degree line on your cutting mat, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to lay my first sheet of paper along the 45-degree edge, and I'm also going to make sure that this corner here lines up with one of the straight lines on the cutting mat. It just helps. My second sheet, I want to align this corner of it with this corner of the paper. So I'm going to match those together. And I'm just going to lay the sheet down, following the straight line on my cutting mat. And then the third sheet is very simple. It just butts up against the last piece there. So if you can do that, you're in business. I'm going to put a little piece of tape on each one here just to hold it together. So we have a couple of little lines to draw on here before we're ready to use it. You know, a regular tree stocking, it gets hung on the mantle or whatever. That's going to require a little loop. I have made a loop. I've just cut an 8-inch long piece of fabric and I've folded it over like you would a bias tape. This is going to serve as my loop, and we have to make a marking on this pattern as to where we want that to go. So look at this last sheet of paper. This whole last sheet of paper, if I fold it in half, that is going to be the lining of the stocking that you see, okay, the folded over part. So my loop needs to come out here. So if I unfold that, I'm going to make a little mark here where that fold is, because that's where I want my loop to be. Now the second thing is, we need to be able to turn this inside out, probably a couple times during this process. So we have to leave an opening. We're not going to sew all around this. So my advice to you is, it can be whatever you want it to be. I'm going to make a mark here and a mark here because I can slide my whole hand in there and do some turning. So that'll be important. And then the last part of this is we just need to curve these lines out, which really, I've got some pencil lines, but I'm just going to draw over these just so you can kind of see. This is just a rough, it doesn't have to be perfect at all. And this is the curve there. And then when we cut fabric, we'll just cut a curve in here. This is your whole pattern. I'm just going to write loop, because that's where our loop is going to go. So the next thing we want to do, let's talk about our fabrics. I'm going to use this fabric for the main body of the tree stocking. And I chose this because it's complicated. You know, you can choose a plain color or something and it doesn't matter where you lay this on it anywhere. But when you've got a picture like we've got here, come on, you have to think ahead and go, well, what part of this do I want showing on my Christmas stocking? So this took some playing around, but you'll see on the finished product. I tried to lay it out where I had a deer maybe in the toe of the stocking. I had a deer maybe showing up right here in the main part of the stocking. You really have to play with that because it's important. You don't want to have like a half of a deer or a half a deer there. So pay attention to the pattern because it really does make a difference in the final product. And then for the lining fabric, I just chose this simple green. That's what you'll see across the top of the stocking when we're finished. So you're going to cut these pieces out, right sides together. I'm going to set this aside for a minute. And I have already done that just to show you. This is my lining, and this is my main fabric of the stocking, okay? So on the main fabric of the stocking, these are right sides together again. I'm going to stitch a line, a 1/2-inch seam allowance, all the way around this, stop at the top. That top will stay open. On my lining part, again, these are right sides together, I'm going to stitch around here, 1/2-inch seam allowance all the way around, stop here because I need that hand opening, start here again and go all the way to the end. But it's important before we get to the end that we insert this loop, remember? So I've made a notation here where I want that loop to be, and I fold it over. And I'm just going to insert it in here with the raw edge of the fabric right here along this edge. I'm going to tuck it in there, and that looks good. So I will stitch that in, all right? So the next part of this is we go to the sewing machine. Okay, so now I'm going to take all my pins out, and what we're going to do is the pinking shears here, you know, that cut as a zigzag, we're going to trim around all of the curved edges, all right? Taking pins out and then curve around all the curved edges on both of these pieces. Okay, so now we have trimmed the curved edges. This is where this opening comes in handy. You're going to stick your hand in the lining piece and turn it right side out. So do that one piece at a time. I'm just going to reach in and pull each end. And it just takes a little playing, but you can get it done pretty well. Look, I'm going to run my fingers on the inside of this round edge just to kind of stretch it out. That's fine. And then look, here's our other edge. There's that loop we put in. That's going to look really, really nice. So your lining edge is now right side out. And we're going to stuff it into this piece, your main piece, which is still turned inside out. Don't worry about that. But you're going to open this up, and we are going to stuff the whole thing inside of here. So let me first make sure that's going to face the same direction, and it will. So I'm going to put my whole hand in here, and we're just going to stuff this in. Take your time with this because there's no easy way to do it. You just have to just keep playing with it. All right, so I got that. I got that. And I'm going to go back in and just make sure, yeah, this is going to be great. Those edges are touching. We have just pushed the lining into the main part of our stocking. So if you look inside your stocking now, you've got two layers. We have our main layer, which is our main fabric, and it is, the right side of it is touching the right side of our lining, of the green, okay? So we basically have a loop here, and I'm just going to match the seam edges here, one seam to one seam, and put a pin in that. And I'm going to turn it around and also match the seams on the other end and put a pin in that. We are just going to take this to the sewing machine and just stitch an edge all around this outer circle, okay? Now my sewing machine does not have a sleeve. I can't just slide it in there, and that's okay. I'm going to only put half of it in, you'll see, just like this. This can be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It can be whatever you want it to be. Okay, so we have stitched the outer edge of this together. Now, we're almost done. I'm going to reach in and I'm going to pull the lining out. The one we so carefully stuffed in here, right? We're going to grab hold of it and pull it out. Look what we've got here. We have our original piece, and now we've got this inside out lining piece, right? And that's okay. We are almost done with this. We're going to reach into the hole again. And this time, we're going to reverse everything. So I'm going down to the bottom of my main fabric. We're going to pull that through. And we're going to turn out the lining. So we're going to see that as well. You should now be looking at all the best pieces of your fabric, okay? We're seeing the pretty lining here. I'm going to push my fingers into the curve here just to stretch it out. Pull my hand out of there. So here's our nice lining piece. Here's our loop. And then look, here is our nice outer edge. I'm also going to stuff my hand in there, because I want to turn this corner out too. Look, just push your fingers through there. You can make that work. Looks very nice. So now, this opening that I had, that I was putting my hand into, you can either whip stitch this closed. I'm just going to sew a seam right across it. This is going to be in the inside of the stocking. This is not going to be seen. So, okay. So now, I think you can guess. We are just going to start playing with this, and we are going to push this nice lining inside of this nice stocking. And yes, it takes a little doing, but you can do it. Once you get the main part in there, then you can use your hand and really stuff it down in there. We're all finished sewing, we're just playing with the shape now. And I'm almost to the bottom. Very nice. I can feel the lining all the way to the end. See our shape. Our circle is taking shape now. There's the heel. Here's the main stocking. It's looking great. And all we have to do then is turn over the top. Here's that loop we sewed in there. As soon as you expose that loop, you are in good shape. So just keep playing with the shape of that if you want to turn a little more. I'm going to turn just a little bit more. Very nice. I love this. Now, I hope you can see this. I'll hold this up if you can't. Remember I told you about the pattern placement? We've got a deer here. We've got a deer in the toe as well. So it was carefully laid out that way. I'm going to push this toe out just a little bit more, just so it's a little rounder. And that is how you do it. I think it's a great finish. I love it.